Hey everybody, this is First Warn Storm Team Chief Meteorologist Brad Pan. I just want to give you an update on what's potentially heading our way for your Monday and Tuesday. Kind of a complicated setup going on across the southeast. You can see down here over parts of Mississippi and Louisiana, we've got our surface low right in here that is tracking roughly up in this direction, it appears. Over the Carolinas, kind of an interesting setup. We've got some cool air which has wedged itself down over the western Carolinas, the upstate of South Carolina, and some parts of northeast Georgia. What that is doing right now is actually stabilizing the atmosphere. If I put the temperatures up there, notice we're in the 60s up here, but more importantly, when you look at the dew points are only in the 50s. So as we get what we call isentropic lift, we're going to get some moisture to ride up and over this surface up here, which is a cool, stable surface. That's going to create a lot of rain, mainly stratiform rain. We're talking about some light rain, drizzle, non-convective or non-thunderstorm type winds or thunderstorm type rains are going to develop. The problems are going to start to develop if the low should track a little bit closer and bring in some warm, humid air. The cells that I'm watching to the south right now, these down here, these are ones you have to watch very carefully tonight as they seem to track up in this direction. And then this cluster of cells down in here, and depending on where that goes, that could be problematic. So let's look at some of the model data. The first thing you're looking at is storm relative helicity here. This is basically a parameter of low-level shear between the surface and about 3 kilometers up. Now, this is impressive shear. If you look at where the shear is going, it definitely looks like the worst of it's going to travel up into Tennessee, Georgia, Alabama, and even parts of the western Carolinas. You see that may be the wedge front. It's hard to tell if the wedge is going to break, but that would be an area I'd watch for some severe weather. But it's really back in here along this line. You can see roughly right in here. I mean, this looks to be an area of particular concern because we know it's going to be warm and humid back there. Here we might be stable. Even though we have a ton of shear, we may not have what I would call a lot of instability or cape. But as we go through time, this is going through the day tomorrow, early in the morning, a lot of shear coming up our way. But again, this may be all elevated as it's going over the top of the wedge. And then you notice back here, look at what's going on in Birmingham and areas in Alabama. That would be an area where we could see supercell development or rotating thunderstorms. That moves up into Georgia and eventually moves up into eastern Tennessee. And you notice over the Carolinas, while there is a lot of shear, I'm going to show you in a second, there's not a lot of cape or instability. So when you look at this, you look at most of the threat being from Alabama, Georgia, up into Tennessee, and maybe a little bit trying to sneak in to parts of western North Carolina. Now I'm going to flip this over and show you the cape. This is the thunderstorm fuel, essentially. And if you look at the thunderstorm fuel, notice through time, this is the same time frame and the same model. Notice even though we had all that shear over in here, there's not a lot of a cape. It's all down here in Alabama. So what you're looking for is where are those two things going to overlay, where are you going to have the shear and the cape. And in fact, let's throw in some of those model overlays. I'm going to overlay the shear and the cape right now. So we'll put those two together. And what you're going to see is the areas where you have the most shear and cape is basically right over here in parts of Alabama and Georgia. So when I overlay those two together, this is an area where you would have potential instability and enough shear to create some rotating thunderstorms. Right in here, there's a small area, not as strong, but an area we'll watch carefully. That's likely along the wedge boundary, which will be the defining area. But if you look over North Carolina in particular, notice that cape, it doesn't really ever get that high. A lot of it's elevated. And most of it stays east of us. Now, it does look like some tries to break out here late tomorrow night into Tuesday morning, but notice the western Carolinas, it's really not a big deal. It looks like most of this action is going to end up here in eastern North Carolina on Tuesday morning. The timing of the day is also going to help too. We're going to lose the heating of the afternoon, which should help reduce the severe weather risk. Let's look at a couple things from the Storm Prediction Center. If you look what they're looking at right now, they're looking at that area where the shear and the cape kind of line up. As far as rainfall is concerned, we clearly have a heavy rain threat in this same area as well. About 2 to 3 inches of rain possible in those locations. So let's look at some model data. We'll loop this a couple of times. This is our RPM model or our future cast. We'll let this run out and restart here. So here's our system tonight. Notice how the strong cells come up here and kind of fall apart. Doesn't mean some of these couldn't be rotating, but it looks like it's going to be moving in some cool, stable air. All the activity actually looks to be right in here late tomorrow into Tuesday morning. And notice how nothing really gets going here in western North Carolina, but something tries to get going in eastern North Carolina. So just based on what I'm seeing tonight on the model data and on the surface, I think the threat for severe weather is going to be relatively minimal tomorrow. But tomorrow night into Tuesday, I'm going to watch along this wedge boundary, because wherever that sets up, we are definitely going to have the threat for some severe weather as this system kind of heads up our way. You can see earlier tonight we had some severe weather down here in parts of Louisiana, Mississippi, and Alabama. So with just a little bit of heating today, they got some tornadic storms. Tonight things seem to be calming down a little bit, and we do still have a tornado watch down there. But something we'll keep an eye on as we go through the overnight and through the day tomorrow. I think we're okay Monday. It's going to be a Monday night into Tuesday thing we're going to have to watch carefully. Of course, I'll have you covered online, on TV, and on social media. Make sure you follow me, wxbrad, or my Facebook page, and of course wcnc.com. We'll try to post these updates as we get some new information. But right now, expect a rainy, cool Monday with the possibility of a stormy Tuesday.